The studio lights glared like judgment. The live sign flickered red above the cameras, and every lens pointed toward the man sitting across from Donald Trump, Denzel Washington. The crowd had come expecting entertainment, maybe a few jabs, a viral clip to replay tomorrow. What they got instead was stillness, the kind that felt like the moment before thunder. Trump leaned back in his chair, smirk sharp, suit glowing under the stage lights. "Denzel," he said, voice slick with confidence, "you've been talking a lot about truth lately. But let me tell you something about politics, it's not a movie." The audience chuckled. Denzel didn't. He sat forward, elbows on the table, voice steady as stone. "You're right," he said quietly. "Movies end. Power doesn't." The laughter died fast. The moderator shifted nervously. "All right, gentlemen, let's stay civil. Tonight, we're talking national security." But Denzel cut him off, not with volume, but with precision. "I just want to ask one question," he said, eyes locked on Trump. "Who's the spy?" The studio froze. Cameras zoomed. A producer offstage mouthed, "Did he just?" Trump blinked, taken off guard for the first time that night. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," Denzel continued. "Someone in your team has been leaking intelligence briefings, the same team you call loyal. So, I'm asking, who's the rotten apple?" A ripple went through the audience. Reporters' fingers hit their keyboards like rain on glass. The red light of the "Live" sign burned brighter, as if the building itself knew something had just exploded on air. Trump smiled, tight and brittle. "You think you can sit there and lecture me, Hollywood boy?" Denzel didn't blink. "No," he said, calm as a verdict. "I'm not lecturing. I'm exposing." And that's when the control room realized, this wasn't politics anymore. It was war, live, unedited, and unstoppable. Trump's face tightened. His hand gripped the edge of the desk, knuckles pale under the bright studio lights. The moderators exchanged terrified glances. This wasn't in the script. The control room buzzed, producers shouting, "Cut to commercial." But the director didn't, because this was ratings gold. Denzel stayed perfectly still, his gaze locked. "You said loyalty built your empire," he said, his tone smooth as polished steel. "But someone in your circle is feeding the press. Names, documents, deals. You keep firing people, but the leaks keep coming. So I'll ask again, who's the spy?" Trump leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "You think I don't know? You think you can come on my network and pull some movie star stunt?" Denzel didn't flinch. "I'm not performing," he said quietly. "I'm asking a question America's been too scared to ask." The audience murmured. A man in the second row whispered, "He's really doing it." Trump pointed across the table. "You actors, you think you're patriots. But when it comes to real power, you've never had to carry the weight. You just pretend." That was the line Denzel had been waiting for. He leaned in, voice low but sharp enough to cut the air. "You're right," he said. "I pretend for a living. But the difference between us, Mr. President," he paused, his eyes steady, "is that when I lie, everyone knows it's fiction." The crowd gasped. Someone in the audience clapped before being shushed. Trump smirked, trying to laugh it off, but his voice cracked slightly. "Cute line. Bet your agent wrote that." "No," Denzel replied. "Reality did." The moderator tried to step in again, but the stage had become an arena. Every word was a jab, every pause a challenge. The internet was already exploding, hashtags forming mid-sentence. And Denzel wasn't done. "You've got billion-dollar bailouts, trillions in debt, and a government that leaks like a sinking ship. So, I'll ask one last time." His voice dropped into a near whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the studio. "Who's the spy, Donald?" Trump opened his mouth to answer, but the truth wasn't what anyone expected. The temperature in the studio spiked, not because of the lights, but because Donald Trump was losing control. "Who the hell do you think you are?" he barked, slamming his palm on the desk so hard the microphones rattled. "You're just an actor. You read lines someone else writes for you." The audience gasped. Some laughed nervously. Others just stared, wide-eyed, waiting for the explosion. But Denzel didn't move. He just sat there, calm, unmoving, eyes locked on Trump with a kind of silence that cut deeper than shouting ever could. "Funny," he said finally, voice smooth as glass. "Because tonight, you're the one acting." The crowd reacted instantly, a wave of gasps, a few oaths, the kind that rippled through every screen across the country. Twitter lit up like a wildfire. Clips of the moment were already being shared, hashtags forming mid-broadcast, hashtag who is the spy, hashtag Denzel versus Trump. Trump leaned forward, face turning red. "You don't know what it takes to lead. You people live in fantasy." Denzel interrupted quietly, "And yet, here we are, living in yours." The moderator tried to interject, "Gentlemen, please," but the show had slipped out of anyone's control. This wasn't a debate anymore. It was a mirror, one Denzel was holding up for the entire nation to see. "America's drowning in debt," Denzel continued, voice low but firm. "Your own advisors are turning on you. The people who swore loyalty now whisper in boardrooms and back halls. So I'll ask one last time, Mr. Trump, who's the spy?" Trump pointed across the table, almost shouting, "There's no spy, you don't know what you're talking about." Denzel tilted his head. "Then why are you sweating?" The audience erupted. Trump's jaw tightened, his hand slamming the desk again. "You're done," he said. "You'll never be invited back here again." Denzel stood up slowly, buttoned his jacket, and said evenly, "That's fine. I didn't come here to be invited. I came here to be heard." The cameras stayed on him. And America did, too. The second the cameras cut to commercial, chaos erupted behind the scenes. Producers yelled through headsets, interns sprinted across the floor, and security guards moved toward the stage, just in case. Trump was still at the desk, breathing heavy, red-faced, jaw tight. His aides rushed in like a cleanup crew after a storm. "Cut his mic," someone shouted from the control room. Too late. The moment was already out in the world. Within 30 seconds, clips of Denzel's final words, "I didn't come here to be invited. I came here to be heard," were trending across every platform. Hashtag Denzel speaks. Hashtag who is the spy. Hashtag Trump meltdown. Backstage, Denzel was calm. His assistant handed him his phone, already buzzing with notifications. CNN, MSNBC, The Guardian, every outlet had the clip. Some called it a historic confrontation. Others called it career suicide. Denzel didn't say a word. He just scrolled, expression unreadable. "Sir," his assistant whispered, "Trump's team just called the network. They want the footage pulled." Denzel gave a small, knowing smile. "Then they know it's real." In the hallway outside, reporters were gathering, microphones ready. A security guard tried to block them, but Denzel raised a hand. "It's okay," he said quietly. He turned to the cameras and spoke with the same calm tone that had shattered the stage minutes earlier. "You all saw it," he said. "I asked a question. A fair one. If truth makes people angry, maybe they should ask themselves why." The hallway went silent. Phones recorded, flashbulbs popped. And in that single soundless beat, everyone understood, this wasn't over. Denzel walked away without looking back. Behind him, the studio still buzzed like a broken machine trying to reboot. But out there, on every screen, every feed, every late-night talk show, his words were already rewriting the narrative. He didn't yell. He didn't insult. He just asked, "Who's the spy?" And somehow, the entire country felt accused. By sunrise, America was on fire, not with flames, but with opinions. Every network ran the same footage on loop: Denzel's stare, Trump's outburst, and that final, perfect line, "I didn't come here to be invited. I came here to be heard." Fox News called it Hollywood arrogance. CNN labeled it the moment power blinked. Social media didn't care what anyone called it. It had already crowned Denzel the voice of reason in a storm of chaos. At 6 a.m., Trump called into a morning talk show, furious. His voice boomed through the phone line. "It was a setup. They invited that guy to ambush me. Total fake, total disgrace." The host tried to calm him. "Mr. Trump, are you saying Denzel I'm saying he's part of the problem. Trump barked. He reads a script, America listens, and suddenly they think he's Gandhi. Give me a break. The clip spread faster than wildfire. Within minutes, memes flooded in, split screens of Trump shouting and Denzel's calm face beside him, captioned. One lost control. The other controlled the room. Meanwhile, Denzel sat in his kitchen, drinking coffee in silence. No entourage, no camera crew. Just him, the morning light, and a phone vibrating non-stop. His publicist's voice came through, frantic. They're calling from every network. You could double your fee just to comment. Denzel cut her off gently. I'm not selling this moment, he said. It's already been bought by the truth. On the other side of the country, late-night hosts replayed the showdown like it was a boxing match. Commentators debated who won. Some said Denzel humiliated a former president. Others said Trump walked into a trap. But to the millions who watched, it wasn't about winning. It was about composure, about how power reacts when questioned. And in that calm, unflinching moment, Denzel had done something rare in American television. He made silence louder than rage. By midday, Trump was done playing defense. He went on the offensive. Denzel Washington is finished, he roared at a press conference outside his Florida estate. He's a Hollywood fraud who thinks he can lecture America. Guess what? Nobody cares what an actor thinks. His aides clapped half-heartedly. Cameras clicked like gunfire. The clip went viral, again. But this time, it didn't land the way Trump expected. The comments beneath every upload told the real story. At least Denzel speaks with class. Trump's losing it. Who's the spy now? The phrase had taken on a life of its own. Who's the spy? Had become the internet's shorthand for hypocrisy, deceit, and political chaos. Hashtags, shirts, podcasts, it spread faster than any campaign slogan. Meanwhile, Denzel stayed quiet. He refused every interview, declined every offer. His silence became strategy. When a journalist caught him outside a studio and asked, "Mr. Washington, do you regret what you said?" he smiled faintly. "Regret?" he said. "Only that the question still needs to be asked." Back in Washington, D.C., a senior advisor leaked an anonymous memo. The former president's circle is fractured. Someone's been feeding information to the press. The timing was too perfect. Every headline connected the dots. Denzel might have been right. By evening, the storm had reached full force. Cable news anchors spoke in urgent tones. Could the actor's accusation have roots in reality? On Twitter, politicians argued while comedians turned the debate into skits. But beneath the noise, something more powerful was happening. People started asking real questions about loyalty, truth, and who actually runs the show behind the scenes. Denzel didn't gloat. He didn't post. He just watched the world talk. And in that silence, he'd done something no political speech could. He'd made America suspicious of its own reflection. 2 days later, the story broke, not from Hollywood, but from Capitol Hill. A leaked intelligence report hit every major outlet at once. The headline was brutal. White House insider accused of leaking classified briefings to private donors. The name dropped like a bomb, one of Trump's closest advisors. Within minutes, journalists connected the dots. The same leaks Denzel had hinted at. The same whispers he'd called out on live TV. Inside Trump's camp, panic spread faster than denial. Phones rang off the hook. Lawyers assembled emergency statements. Aides who once boasted about loyalty now deleted old tweets. And through it all, one question echoed across every headline, talk show, and political blog. Was Denzel right all along? The internet didn't wait for confirmation, it decided for itself. Clips of Denzel's stare resurfaced. His voice, calm, sharp, prophetic, replayed millions of times with captions like, "He warned them." The calm before exposure. When truth sits across from power. At Mar-a-Lago, Trump raged behind closed doors. He set me up. It's a smear campaign, he yelled, smashing a glass on the floor. But no one corrected him this time. His advisors had gone silent, their loyalty evaporating like smoke. Meanwhile, Denzel sat in a small private office in Los Angeles, lights dim, reading the headlines on his tablet. His assistant whispered, "They're calling you a prophet now." Denzel shook his head slowly. "I'm no prophet," he said. "I just asked the question no one else dared to." He scrolled through the comments, not the political takes, not the celebrity gossip, but the messages from ordinary people. Teachers, soldiers, mothers, students, all writing some version of the same thing. "Thank you for saying what we couldn't." He smiled faintly. "That," he said softly, "is why I spoke." Outside, thunder rolled over Los Angeles. And somewhere in Washington, a man who thought he controlled the narrative realized, for the first time, he was the one being written about. The White House was silent, but the country wasn't. Cable networks blared the same words over and over: internal betrayal, national breach, source confirmed. Every camera pointed toward Trump, but every conversation led back to Denzel. On social media, the line had evolved into a rallying cry. Who's the spy? A question America wasn't ready to answer. Polls showed an overnight shift. Even Trump's supporters, the loudest of the loyal, began to hesitate. Anonymous leaks hinted that more names would surface, names close enough to sting. That evening, Denzel broke his silence. Not on a talk show. Not through a PR statement. He appeared on a small independent podcast, no cameras, just his voice. "I didn't accuse," he said quietly. "I asked." If that question shook the country, maybe the truth wasn't as stable as we thought. The host asked, "Do you think this changes politics?" Denzel paused, then replied, "Politics won't change until honesty stops being treated like an attack." Meanwhile, Trump doubled down. He went live on his own social platform, claiming he was the victim of a witch hunt. "They're coming for me because I tell the truth," he shouted. But this time, the usual cheers were drowned out by doubt. Clips of Denzel's calm tone next to Trump's fury flooded the internet again: silence versus noise, composure versus chaos. The contrast was devastating. By midnight, a new poll flashed across every screen. Greater than 72% of Americans said they trusted Denzel Washington more than any current political leader. Back in LA, Denzel turned off his phone and stared out at the city lights. "Truth doesn't need volume," he murmured. "It just needs space." The camera in that imaginary moment would have pulled back slowly, one man alone, but his question echoing across an entire nation. 3 days after the leak, a black SUV pulled up outside Denzel's Los Angeles home. The knock on his door wasn't from the press this time. It was from Washington. A Secret Service agent handed him an envelope sealed with the presidential crest. "Mr. Washington," the man said, voice tight but respectful, "the president has requested your presence at the White House." Off the record. Denzel raised an eyebrow, then smiled faintly. Off the record's where truth usually hides. Within 24 hours, he was walking through the marble corridors of power, the same halls that had seen history's greatest speeches and its deepest lies. Every staffer stared as he passed. Some nodded in quiet respect. Others looked away. In the Oval Office, Trump was waiting. No cameras, no crowd, just two chairs facing each other like chess pieces that had finally met in the center of the board. "You made quite a mess," Trump said, half smirk, half snarl. "I asked a question," Denzel replied. The mess was already there. Trump leaned forward. "You think this helps anyone? You think chaos builds a country?" Denzel met his gaze, steady, calm. "Sometimes you have to break the noise to hear the truth." For a moment, neither man spoke. The silence stretched, thick and electric. Outside, the press gathered like vultures, unaware that the conversation inside wasn't about fame, it was about control. Trump finally broke the silence. "You've got people believing you're some kind of hero." Denzel smiled, slow and deliberate. "I'm not a hero, Mr. President. I'm a mirror. What people see in me depends on what they're running from." Trump's jaw tightened. He looked away, then back again, voice lower now. "So what do you want, Denzel? You want to play politics?" "No," Denzel said, standing up. "I just want you to stop pretending loyalty and honesty are the same thing." As he turned to leave, Trump muttered, "You'll regret this." Without turning back, Denzel said, "Only if the truth stops scaring you." The door closed behind him. Outside, the reporters shouted questions. He didn't answer, he just kept walking. The man who once acted for applause had now spoken for accountability. And the world couldn't look away. By dawn, the photos were everywhere, Denzel Washington leaving the White House, head high, expression unreadable. Every network froze the same frame, his hand brushing the doorway, half in light, half in shadow. Headlines screamed. "Washington walks out, Trump left silent. Who's the spy?" The question that shook the presidency. In less than 12 hours, markets wavered, pundits imploded, and millions of Americans rewatched that stare, the one Denzel had given Trump on live TV. It wasn't rage. It wasn't pride. It was prophecy fulfilled. Talk shows argued whether Denzel had humiliated the president or liberated the country. Memes spread like wildfire, the calmest man in the loudest room. But beyond the noise, something deeper had shifted. Students in classrooms debated honesty and power. Soldiers wrote online about truth versus loyalty. Even politicians, the same ones who'd once dodged every hard question, began to use a new phrase. Ask the Denzel question. It became shorthand for accountability. For daring to speak when silence was safer. That night, Denzel appeared one last time, not in a studio, not in a press conference, but on his own terms. A short, unedited video posted to his social feed. No lighting, no music, just his voice. "They said I made history," he began. "I didn't. I just refused to lie quietly." He paused. "You don't need a stage to speak truth. You just need the courage to lose something for it." The clip went viral instantly, tens of millions of views in hours. And as the camera faded to black, one line appeared on screen in white text. "Who's the spy?" Maybe it was never about one man. Maybe it was the silence we all protected. The story wasn't about Denzel or Trump anymore. It was about a nation forced to look in the mirror. And this time, the reflection wasn't easy to face. The camera slowly moves in on Denzel's face. The lighting is dim, his voice low, but every word lands like a hammer. He's no longer part of a debate, he is the message now. "I didn't come here to win an argument. I came here to remind this country what honesty sounds like when you stop yelling." A pause. Then that unmistakable Denzel stare, straight into the lens. If truth makes you uncomfortable, maybe it's because it still matters. The silence lingers, sharp and heavy. Then his final words, quiet but unshakable. "And remember, power without truth is just noise." The screen fades to black. Then, in white letters. "Who's the spy?" Maybe it was never about one man, but about the silence we all protected.